I just went and saw the new Spider-Man Across the Universe, and it was really fantastic, a really solid movie. Man, where do I start? The visuals are obviously what dominate what I have to say about this movie. I think that mostly it's just really, really refreshing to see a movie that takes such a chance. I've seen, obviously, Into the Spider-Verse, and while I thought that that movie was fantastic, I thought there was a lot of kind of glaring, I'm going to say crutches, for the lack of a better term, one of which was that the, any multiverse premise is just riddled for opportunity to make reference and crossover, and I thought that that movie did that a little too much. But Across the Spider-Verse, I think, while still did it much more tastefully. They just did reference as opposed to making those references characters. And I thought that that made this particular movie seem much more mature, again, for the lack of a better word. The soundtrack, I think, is also, there's a lot of great chance taking. You know, it's using obviously modern music, but it does it in a way that doesn't seem cheap and flashy, like it's trying to target children or, teens. It seems like it's actually using modern music and putting it to the right. The music respects the tone of the scene that they're trying to portray. There's a lot of emotion, and again, to go back to the visuals, the art style, absolutely, stunningly, so well executedly complements the tone. So as far as a story goes, I think that it's pretty run-of-the-mill. I wouldn't say that they're doing anything really that unique. The premise, the concept, the universe is all sort of something that we've seen before in other movies, but they really take it the next step with taking chances on what would be accepted in a mass-marketed audience. I mean, you see these kind of movies all the time in art houses or even just on Netflix or something like the Kid Cudi, I think it was Over the Moon or whatever. But to see it actually released nationwide in theaters by a huge production company like Sony and Marvel is just so nice to see. And every single possible sort of wrongdoing with that movie, I personally can overlook just for the bigger picture of I want to support animation taking a plunge into something different. I think similarly to video games, animation like Pixar have just been sort of chasing realism for so long of how good can we show off our computer animation and our graphics and our realism and our textures and our lighting, that it's sort of lost the plot in terms of what style and art really is. And while obviously Pixar movies are still incredible pieces of cinema, Pixar, I'm just going to continue to use an example, is just sort of doing what we've seen already. And so for this to take a step back and to say, it's not all about what our technical effects can do, but what can we do with the same technology but more artistically, I think this movie is a phenomenal example of that. If I may say as such, there were two very minor things that bothered me about the movie. One was that they use a color aberration effect on the backdrop, which just sort of got annoying to me. Again, that's a really minor detail, but it just personally drove me a little nuts. And the other thing was I thought that... rainwater. The other thing is I saw that some of the... I thought that some of the action sequences were like a little bit too fast-paced and jarring, to where I lost my sense of perspective a little bit. And while I understand that it's stylized, it was happening a little bit too fast. But that's super minor. Overall, I highly recommend seeing this movie. I think even if you're not into comic books or Spider-Man or anything, or even if you're not necessarily into animation or the art style, I think you should just see it because it's something different that is, again, in the mainstream theater audience. So overall, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. And again, most of that is just coming, I'll say it one last time, from the visuals. Everything else in the movie I thought was relatively forgettable, although well done. There's just nothing more important than doing something a little bit different, especially in the animation scene where everything seems to be moving away from 2D into 3D, and it's just nice to take a nice, correct, and strong, mature, and thought-out step backwards, if you will.